Hi, I'm Femi Okay, and you're in the stream. US President Donald Trump's tough talk on immigration policy has tens of thousands of people wondering whether they'll be forced to leave the country.
From the potential end of legal residency programs to the president's opposition to so-called chain migration, we speak with a few of those potentially affected to learn how they're preparing for an uncertain future. I'm Malika Bilal, and that's today live on Al Jazeera and YouTube.
Hi, I'm Hector Luis Alamo, Deputy Editor at Latino Rebels, and I'm in the stream.
Immigration policy was a highlight of then-candidate Donald Trump's bid for the US presidency. Now, almost a year since taking office, he's making a hard push for comprehensive reform. This issue was suggested to us by a member of our online community, Taya Teva Peter. Now, here's how our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, has been reporting the story on Al Jazeera.
Donald Trump was defiant when asked in a joint press conference with the Norwegian Prime Minister whether he would sign an immigration deal that does not include funding for a border wall with Mexico.
Would that be a red line for you?
No. It's got to include the wall. We need the wall for security. We need the wall for safety. We need the wall for stopping the drugs from pouring in.
Trump appears to be giving little ground on finding a compromise to immigration reform. It comes after signaling he may be willing to yield to demands by Democrats to keep in place protections for illegal immigrants brought to the United States as children. The program, commonly known as DACA, allows kids brought to the United States before their 16th birthday to remain in the country. Democrats want to keep it and have threatened to stop funding the government over the issue.
So, as the deadline to reform DACA rapidly approaches, how are the program's beneficiaries responding to the news? And what's the likely outcome? We're here to help us discuss. Mariana Martinez-Peroni is a university student and DACA recipient.
Also on our set, we have Loida Georges. She is an immigration lawyer, and she'll be joining us all the way through our show to help break down what all these changes potentially could mean. So it's good to have you here, Mariana and Loida. Mariana, your story. Hello there. You are a DACA recipient. You have papers. You have legal documentation. What makes you a dreamer? What was your story?
Probably everything about it, starting from my parents who came here for that dream, and going on through me. I just, the regular dream, I guess. I want to go to school. I want to get a great job and contribute and help my family out. That's kind of the dream.
And how old were you when you left Uruguay and then you came to the US?
I was 2 years old.
So from that time into the days where we see, of course, DACA and dreamers in the news and the headlines very often, we got this tweet from Raymond. He says, the legislative uncertainty has been incredibly traumatic. One day, there's a glimmer of hope, and the next day, the hope is once again shattered. Can you relate to that at all, Mariana, this idea that you never really feel settled?
Completely. That's kind of my life. People always ask me that, and they kind of laugh at, I guess, how nonchalant I am about it now, because after a certain point, like pulling your hair out and crying and stressing out, and like, it's not healthy. You have to do your best, contribute the best you can, go to the rallies, talk to your senators, but beyond that, there's not much you can do, so you can't just have that negative outlook on it. You have to, I guess, come to terms with it, because if not, you're just going to drive yourself mad.
Loida, let me share this with you. I'm sure you've seen this from President Donald Trump. He shared this on January the 14th. DACA is probably dead because the Democrats don't really want it. They just want to talk and take desperately needed money away from our military. Now, is this policy, does this worry you as an immigration lawyer?
Absolutely. I mean, just to piggyback on the stressors that Mariana was just speaking to, as a practitioner wanting to give sound legal counsel to your clients, there's a black hole because it's that tenuous right now. And as we speak, we really don't know what's around the corner.
So because you don't know what's around the corner, that probably makes the answer to this a little bit harder, but I wanted to bring this up from Rodrigo. He says, unfortunately, there is a lot of uncertainty surrounding DACA, except for the following. He lists a long thread of things on Twitter, and you can check it out there under #AJStream. But this first one, he says, the injunction that allows Dreamers to renew will be appealed. DACA is dead. This will likely be a very limited window of opportunity. He tweeted that January 14th, 7:34 p.m. Local time. What then would you advise, or what should DACA recipients be in talks about with their immigration lawyers?
So right now there is a window for people that were not eligible to renew back in the fall to take advantage of that gap. And the way that DACA is working so far for individuals that were able to renew it timely is that they are, at the very least, protected from removal up until 2019. So this new wave of people, if they take advantage of this little window, may have at least some sort of solace or reprieve for that window period of time. What happens after that? What if DACA is dead? That's the answer that we don't know.
Mariana, tell us the reality of you planning your next 6 months. How do you do that?
Carefully. No, because I am going back to school for the spring semester, but after that semester, hopefully by then we'll know roughly what Trump is planning. If DACA truly is dead, if we have till 2019 to, I guess, fix whatever we're going to do and pack up and go, or if I have to drop out of school and go back to work, if I can continue studying, I don't even know how exactly we would be, like taken out of the country. Would we, be packed up? Would a cop come to our house and arrest us? Would we be serving time? Do we get like a notification or a few months to prepare? It's a little nerve-wracking, not gonna lie.
Mariana, I want you to stay with us. We're going to hear a lot more from you later on in our show. We want to now go to a story that's pitched by Louisa Dubert. She's another member of our online community about the Temporary Protected Status Program, or TPS. It's similar to the benefits provided to undocumented youth. TPS allows people fleeing from conflict or catastrophes to find safe haven in the US. But for thousands of Salvadoran TPS holders, the government's recent decision to terminate their legal status now puts them at risk of deportation. Al Jazeera senior correspondent Rob Reynolds reports.
Shame on you, Donald Trump!
In Washington, demonstrators gathered in front of the White House Monday, protesting a decision by the Trump administration to take away temporary protected status, or TPS, from more than 200,000 Salvadorans. They had been permitted to live in the U.S. following disastrous earthquakes that struck their homeland in 2001. The Trump administration says TPS was never meant to be permanent, and that social disruptions caused by the earthquakes no longer exist. El Salvador is one of the world's most dangerous places. It had the highest murder rate of any country in 2015. Powerful gangs operate with near impunity, and poverty and unemployment are dire. Activists say political pressure is needed to reverse the decision, and that many children of Salvadoran parents were born in the U.S. and thus are American citizens.
Well, after 2 decades living in the U.S., how are some of these Salvadorans responding to the decision and the possibility that they may have to leave? Well, joining us now is Milagro Ribas. She is a TPS holder living in the U.S. state of Texas. Welcome to the show, Milagro. I wanted to start with these tweets we got from someone named Ozzy Trucho on Twitter. He says, I've grown up as an American, embracing the values I once thought universal in the United States. The decision to end TPS is devastating to the Salvadoran community, the American economy, and the American community at large. And he gives a specific reason in this next tweet. He says, this decision will not only separate Salvadoran American children from their TPS holding parents, but it will detract from an already struggling skilled labor sector, which depends heavily on Salvadoran TPS beneficiaries. Milagro, that point about separating American-born children from their TPS holding parents, can you relate to that? Is that something that you're having to think about right now?
Yes, because we lose our TPS, that would we will be in the limbo again. We cannot go back to our country. Our country right now is very dangerous. As I heard, is one of the most dangerous countries in the world right now. If we go over there, that would be like a bait or gang members. It's why punish on people like that? We have been done everything right.
Milagro, tell us the story about how you got to the US.
I came through a tourist visa when I was 20, so I've been here for 20 years. And I incorporate to the society. I feel part of this country. I have been done everything right, and our permits was like, I understand that it was temporary at the beginning, but you know, after like 16 years, it's not anymore temporary. We've been here like for almost 2 decades. So it's a very long time. It's really hard for us, you know, to go back. I haven't been in my country since I got here. My kids, they don't know other country other than this one.
Lori, this idea about temporary, how problematic is this in terms of the legal rights of people who have TPS? What rights do they actually have?
Well, when you are given TPS, you are allowed to work. And in very narrow circumstances, you can ask for permission to leave the country. Typically, those circumstances are if there's a medical emergency and or school-related or business-related. And that's it. It's a protection against deportation, but it's not a path to legal status. So a lot of times you'll hear folks say, hey, why don't you get a green card? You've been here so long. They have TPS because they don't have any other way to get that status.
So there are a few people, Femi, talking about the temporary aspect of this that you just mentioned to Loida. And on one hand, you have people who are understanding of it, and on the other hand, you have people who are critical. So Esther on Twitter says, existing in a long-term cycle of temporary status for the past 17 years placed TPS recipients from El Salvador in a legally precarious situation, making them unsure of their futures in the U.S. So she can understand what that must feel like. Here's a question, though, from Sam, and he says, if the status was made for a disaster or war, a catastrophic incident that forced people to find refuge in the U.S. and that condition is over, then yes, I agree, they should go back. Milagro, what would you say to people who say this was temporary and it's not necessarily the Trump administration's fault that it wasn't taken away so many years ago?
Let me tell you something. When I left my country, it was better than the way how it is right now. I think right now we need those protection more than ever. Right now, my country is very dangerous country to live. Very, very dangerous. If we go there, we're just gonna go to the certain death.
Let me just show you some pictures from your family so I can show our audience. It's not just about one people, individual people. It's about connecting with families as well. This one, I think this is about as American as apple pie. Disney Hollywood Studios. We've got your mum here, Milagro, and you, and your hubby, Edwin, and these two little munchkins. Who are they?
Yeah, they are my kids. They're my two little ones.
Okay. Another picture here with you. Again, how it's interesting to see how American do you feel right now? Do you feel like you're from El Salvador or you feel like you're from the US?
Well, I am from El Salvador, of course. I love my country, but I feel that I belong to this one. I have been here for so many years. I love this country. I love the people, and the people, they make me feel like I am part of them. I never feel any discrimination or anything from anyone. So this is kind of sad, it's frustrated, it's kind of mixed feeling. I don't know how can I express the bad how I feel to even think about it, that we're gonna go back to a country that I don't even remember how it looked like.
So Loida, we got this comment from someone watching live on YouTube. Hubert says, if the U.S. does indeed expel people in the tens of thousands, may these victims of forced migration be eligible for asylum in other developed countries? Is that something that you're even recommending for people to find other countries that may take them?
Well, that's a personal choice. For a lot of people, that's just not an option, especially if you've been living here for decades. To be sure, if TPS or when it's terminated, whether it's TPS or DACA, the question of what happens, will ICE show up at my door? Will I be carted away in a bus or in a caravan to the border? Traditionally, in the past, that has not happened. People have just swallowed up into the fabric of the under-the-table world, and so very well likely that will happen again. And that's what people will do, especially if you've got mixed status families where half of them are here legally. They're not going to just pack up and seek refuge in another country because this is home. And so that person who commented earlier about the precarious situation that they're in, that's a reality. And I don't know that the answer is deportation.
Loida, Milagro, stick around a bit more for our roundtable at the end of the show. We now move on to the fight to keep immigrant families together. President Trump has frequently voiced his opposition to family-based migration. That's an intensive and sometimes costly process that allows U.S. citizens and green card holders to sponsor relatives for permanent residence. Well, critics of the current system say petitions should be limited to parents and their children. Trump's administration has also endorsed legislation promoting a points-based system. Pro-immigration groups, though, say such reforms are less about the economy or national security and more about the government picking and choosing what sort of immigrants can come to the U.S. So what does the future of immigration look like for people hoping to build new lives and communities in the U.S.?
So here with us to help answer that question, Richard Davis. He's a community activist in New York, originally from Guyana. Richard, in the last couple of, let's say in the last year, and the community around you, the Guyanese community around you, what has changed in the way they think about their immigration status, if they're documented or undocumented? What's it like being in America right now?
My family actually came here on family preference visas. The reality is this particular topic hasn't really gotten a lot of attention and conversation in the community because of comments that the president makes that kind of monopolize the narrative. And bigger topics like DACA, topics about ICE raids in communities, but this specific topic, which is one that the Guyanese community uses primarily to come to New York, but families across the world use to come to the United States, is one that's under threat and really hasn't gotten a lot of attention or discussion, even in the community.
An ICE raid is an immigration and customs enforcement raid. Loida, this graphic comes from Numbers USA, which is a group in the United States who want to control immigration. And they say from one person, one family member, look at all the number of people who potentially could end up coming to the United States. Now, that is quite a lot of people from one family member. Over the top?
It's over the top when you look at it from a practical perspective. There's a wait time when a family-based petition is filed. And that wait time is further expanded when you're sitting and waiting for a visa. So for instance, if you're a legal resident filing for your adult child, the wait time for that adult child is roughly 9 years. If you're a US citizen filing for a sibling, the wait time is roughly 13 years for them to get a visa. And that time is even longer if you're from China, India, or the Philippines, and so, and Mexico, excuse me, and that's because those countries are disproportionately overrepresented in the immigrant pool. And for some of them, that wait time pushes at 20 years. So it's almost laughable when folks talk about this chain migration idea where it's a domino effect, where you come in and then within years your whole family is here. It just simply doesn't happen that way. There's a very narrow group of folks that can apply for a visa and have it immediately available to them. Everyone else has to wait in line.
You mentioned the wait times. You took the words right off of this tweet from EJ, thinking the same thing. He said there are lots of misconceptions about so-called chain migration. One is after Mexico, the next 4 countries with the longest visa wait list due to family-based immigration are the Philippines, India, Vietnam, and China. So in large part, he says, attacks against family-based immigration are attacks against Asian American families. So one misconception in his view. Richard, what is something else you think people don't realize about this so-called chain migration?
You know, I think when I think about it, when the president was running, he talked about Make America Great Again. Everyone, I think, began to see what he really meant was to make America white again. There's no surer path to making America white again or whiter than limiting family preference visas. This isn't an avalanche of people, coming over the border. There are long wait times. There are different wait times depending on the relationship. There are wait times depending on the age of the person, if they're minors or if they're adults. There are also different wait times depending on the assets that this person has in that foreign country or how skilled they are. The reality is, though, for example, my grandmother is here now, and she had to go through a liver, not a liver transplant, but a transfusion. And this procedure is not available in Guyana, and this is the only country that she was able to do it.
Sure.
She's here with us now because of this visa, and these are the kinds of things that not only separate families, but permanently affects the livelihoods of people all around the world.
Richard, I want to bring back Mariana and Milagro back into the conversation so we can see all of you here. All various different sorts of immigration statuses. But do you see a connection between your experience that you're having right now in the United States? Mariana?
Oh, hi, sorry. No, I mean, I definitely do, because I think we all have that common feeling of, we love this country, we love the people, we want to be a part of it, we consider ourselves a part of it. And then at the same time being completely rejected by the majority of the nation, well, half of the nation, especially when, as Richard was saying about making America white again, and especially being minorities, and Donald Trump's recent comments about African nations and the nations he actually does want immigrants from, and those nations being white. It's a little awkward, and it's very sad, and it's really troubling, especially, well, for me it is.
So I wanted to share this two tweets from Esther, and she kind of wraps it up in this way. She says, the fear generated by legislation among immigrants is felt in many ways. Immigrant families are separated across borders without work permits. Their employment options dwindle. Their access to education is limited. The fear caused by not knowing where you might work or live is what causes that distress. Milagro, can you relate to this feeling at all? And what does that look like in your own life, that distress? How are you coping with it?
Yeah, this is really sad, situation that we hope, we have to turn all this negative into positive. We need to try to go and talk to our lawmakers to make a solution. We know there are things we cannot change, some people thinking, but we know there is a good, great people here in the United States that I'm sure they thinking different. So we need to work with them, with those people, they're thinking different.
Is there a difference then, Lloyd, do you feel, between the way that the administration is framing immigration and how the American people think about immigration?
I think it depends on where you live, the demographics of whatever region you reside in. We happen to live in a very diverse hub in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And here, I think, overall, the perception and the appreciation of immigrants in the general fabric of the community is very much appreciated. But if you listen to the rhetoric on the news, you'll get completely different perspectives based on either what people are exposed to or what they choose to listen to through the news. And oftentimes, realities are not in sync with perception.
Here is what one person online is doing about that. This is CN Morai on Twitter, who says, as a family, we're looking at lawyers and self-educating ourselves on how they can change their status, this is specifically about TPS, to some other form of residency, though of course it might apply to others as well. She says, personally, I'm responding by getting involved in the movement. We need to make noise. Richard, Mariana, is that something that you agree with?
Definitely.
Completely.
Definitely. We need to make noise. We need to be all together. We need all to be join this campaign. We need to spread the word, and we need to call to the lawmakers to help, our families. No more separate families in these countries.
Yes, Richard.
I think we also have to build alliances. The Black community is a target for this administration. The Muslim community is a target for this administration. We have powerful centers of influences, political influences across this country, and communities of color really have to band together. And this is a moment under this president for minority communities to really work together, because this isn't just immigration. This isn't just a Black issue. This isn't just a Muslim issue. This is something that really goes to the fabric of what we believe America is.
Mariana, Milagro.
I completely I just completely agree with what Richard is saying, because this is turning more into a human rights issue. This is going way beyond race. We really need to get together. And if we really want to make something work, it can't just be DACA people talking about DACA. We have friends. I mean, I know I have friends, and other people have friends that know about our situations, like they also need to get involved and talk and go out there. Like everyone needs to
the community to get involved. Okay, Mariana, Milagro, Richard and Loida, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Of course, it will continue online using the hashtag AJStream. Thanks for watching, everybody.